It's.
Which means I accept all votes. Even no right. Kind of collected it. Oh. Last. Yeah, gonna be the last. Okay. All right, we're gonna get started. 9:30 was the announced time, so we will start at 9:30. Welcome to the 2024 annual meeting of the Hedges. Thank you to everyone here. We got a lot of work done yesterday. That was great. Saved the staff a lot of unskilled work. Because certainly nothing I did was skilled. It didn't look like there was a lot of skilled labor going on. But that's fine. We got a lot of that done. Allow the staff to do other work to button up the can. I'm Brad Granger. I'm one of the co-managers of the LLC. To start off this morning, I want to have us remember, take a moment of silence for our friend Salvatore, real supporter of the Hedges, fellow who is so full of ideas of what we should do and what we could do. It's a great loss to lose him. And then the week he came to the Hedges every year was Sister Jean. And we lost Sister Jean this year as well. So if we could have a moment of silence for the two of them.
Sister Jean passed away too.
Who? Was this
Sister Jean, yeah. Yeah, it's a shame.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's remember Mike and Sister Jean. So this has been our 7th season. I know it seems like we just started on this cast a week ago, but this is our 7th season doing this, and so far successful. I'm going to talk to you today about a few things that we've done. Dave's going to talk a bit about what the LLC's done and what may be coming future. Jamie's going to tell you a little bit from the management perspective, and then we'll run through a few other items on the agenda after that. One of the things that's interesting, 7 years, and we've had many new guests over the past few seasons. It's interesting, most of them never knew the Van Iperns, one of our predecessors at this, never knew them. And some of them don't even know who Pat Benton is. Yeah, it's been 7 years. Some of them don't even know Pat. So the Hedges is becoming this group as we move through more years at this. Our occupancy this season was excellent, ran right about 90%. With a few weeks at 100%. Always want to say hats off to Mary Ann for that. I call it the jigsaw puzzle that she works on, you know, the 2 days available here, the 1 day here, and you call and you want to get something, and oh, I need to squeeze in somebody else, and somehow there's always a jigsaw puzzle piece, and she's able to find you a spot. So we'll really appreciate the hard work there. This year, Jamie kind of quietly increased the number of activities during the week. Didn't, you know, toot the horns too loud, just to quietly increase the number of activities. And of course, we're all appreciative that he brought back ring toss contest.
Yes.
Those of us who've done it for 30 years kind of remember the ring toss. So glad that that came back. One thing I want to point out is this year we were able to welcome 2 hospitality employees who were referred to us by members, by you. And it was really great. They both had good experiences. Mary and I had a niece who did it a couple years ago, brought a couple friends. They had a great experience. I would, you know, please refer friends, neighbors, you know, high school, college folks who might want a different type of job for the summer. It really is a pretty place. Jamie does get them a day off every week, so they can go do their hike or whatever they want to do, as well as work. Between the pay and the tips, it's good. They make a good amount. So they're not hitting up on something that it's well paid. So please, if you know folks, especially if they're available in the month of June. They're college students getting done in May. We really could use a few more hands in the month of June. If you know folks, even if they've got an internship later, they want to come work for 4 weeks. It would be helpful. I'd like you all to think about that as something that we could use each year. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the financial performance. It was excellent. But we'll talk a little bit more about specifics later in the agenda. Be clear, there will be rate increases next year. Costs go up. Can't avoid it. I know we would love to keep the costs the same every year. It doesn't work that way. We got to pay good people fair wages to work for us, and other things go up in cost. Food, supplies, and different types go up. So don't be shocked. Rates will go up a bit next year. We're going to hear a little bit later from Fred Bristol on the advisory committee. They've been busy, so we'll get to hear from them. We continue to do work on the buildings, refresh the boat fleet, do things like that. Hopefully we got a nice review yesterday from some of you folks who volunteered to look at interiors, and some of you who volunteered to look at exteriors. Hopefully we'll be able to work our way through some of that list and make improvements, but we do continue to reinvest in the property every year in different ways, many different ways. I want to give a shout out to our secretary, Dave Lynn. He manages the minutes, the member unit ownership, the member preferred weeks per unit, keeps those charts, and I want to say thank you to Dave for taking care of those things. And then, of course, I got to give a shout out to my wife, who does clippings, and now we do a member letter, newsletter. She's going to give a report on those later, and did 130 social media posts. That's one a day for our entire season. Let's see, the Crow's Nest continues to be popular. Great little store. We appreciate the committee does that. Lynn, Croucher, Steve Gain. Steve's gonna tell us a little bit about the Crow's Nest a little later. Joy helps out with that. So we've got Martha, thank you, helps with that. So we appreciate their work. Everybody loves, especially on a rainy day, to go in, check everything out, and see if there's something they want to buy. So it's great to have that little store here. Appreciate it. I want to let you know there are challenges in the coming years. It really hasn't changed much over the course of 7 years. The challenges are pretty much the same. Wages go up. We need to cover the wages as we go on. Maintenance of this facility, those of you who've never stopped here in February, let me tell you, the winter is cold here. It's bitter and it's long, and it's tough on the buildings. And so those are kind of the big challenges going forward. I'll take questions a little later with David, but right now I'm going to move and let Dave Versfeld tell us a little bit about the activities of the LLC.
Yeah, stand about here, huh?
Yeah.
I apologize if you Zoom people are getting my backside. But my report is short and sweet. The LLC, that's a limited liability company, of which you are all members, is strong and it's healthy. Now, as Brad noted, there'll be a lot of reports after me to go into detail. But I'm confident you will agree after you've heard them that we are in good shape. Now, one reason we're in good shape is because, to me, the primary reason is because we have Jamie and Mary Ann and the staff. You all know as well as I that we are blessed to have them. Now, backing them up is a broad group of volunteers, and I can think of no better demonstration of that than the fact that you are all here. We have 48 people, I think it was 48 at last count, people who arrived this week. We did weeks worth of work in one day. I don't know as you're as stiff as I am, but I'm barely moving this morning. And that is a great thing to get such a huge turnout for to further the shutdown. Now, backing you all up are the elected officers. As Brad mentioned, he and I are co-managers for 1-year terms, and we have 5 additional members of the steering committee. They are Steve Bloom, Joy Bristol, Alex Dykema. Where's Alex? Oh yeah, okay. Annie Wheeler. Was it breakfast?
Annie's behind you.
Oh, okay.
She's in the heckling group.
And yeah, she's in the peanut gallery back with me. And James Brooks, who couldn't be here today, he's traveling in business.
He's online.
Oh, okay. Well, James, thanks for being online. The steering committee had 17 or 18 phone calls, conference calls in the 12 months since last meeting. It is a commitment. It's not too onerous. I don't want to scare anyone away from serving, but it is a constant presence to offer ideas and to oversee the operations and to support Jamie and Mary Ann whenever possible. In addition, the co-managers, Brad and I had 17 calls with Jamie during the 12 months. Again, just to offer our support, keep an eye on things in your interests, and do what we can to further and improve the Hedges. Now, backing them up, and I'll go quickly through this because Brad kind of stole my thunder. Backing the steering committee up is the advisory council, which I call the Fred Bristol show. Fred has an active group. They do great projects. He will report later in the meeting, but they deserve our thanks, including attempts now to get a next-gen group up and alive. Fred will also report on our guest survey. We've had a full year now of guest surveys, and he, with an assist from Steve Bloom, will let you know how that goes. That's, to my mind, all good news. And Brad ran through the others. There's Mary Granger, who continues to work miracles on our communications program. There's the Crow's Nest people, and I think, are you reporting on that, Joy?
Actually, Steve. is.
Okay, Steve's gonna report on that. Steve, having mentioned Steve, he's our accountant, the treasurer of the LLC. He supervises the accounting, the bookkeeping function here. He prepares the financial reports, some of which you have. And he liaises with the outside firm that does your K1s. So I'd say, if you got a problem with your K1, don't call me, call Steve. There are other individuals. Dave Lynn has been introduced. There is Lee Williams, our liaison to Blue Mountain Lake Waterworks. I think she's going to report. And there is, of course, Betsy Hirschman, our librarian for life. If I missed anybody, look, I apologize, but I hope my point is clear. The LLC benefits from a broad group of volunteers who put their shoulder to the wheel on a monthly and indeed daily basis. And we should all be thankful that we have that. Now, let me report about the steering committee. There's a lot that went on in our multiple phone calls, but there are two things I want to talk about specifically. One is that this year we adopted a policy on gift giving to the Hedges. Now, the Hedges will accept gifts from any of you. We're not a not-for-profit, nothing's deductible, but you'd be surprised how many people, when they check out, say, hey, and here's a little extra. If there are no conditions on that, we're happy to accept. In fact, even with conditions, we're happy to accept it. We also will accept in-kind and tangible goods. Those are most often memorial submissions, maybe a contribution of a chair or a bench in memory of someone. We're happy to take those. But we thought it's best to have a policy to guide not only the current elected officers, but future officers. And we did that this year. The policy covers things like naming rights, gift identification, documentation, recognition. Basically, they set out that any tangible thing you want to give to the Hedges, we will consider, as long as it fills a need, so long as it enhances the premises, and so long as it doesn't interfere with the atmosphere of the Hedges. It's just good to have that written down. The other project, and there'll be questions, time for questions later. The other project we've started and we are continuing to work on the steering committee in an in-depth analysis of our cash position. Now, as Steve will report, we've got lots of cash. We're very strong financially. In comparison to other groups, we are extremely strong financially. And the money is carefully invested, the ladder treasuries, and all the stuff that you would want in careful husbandry. But the question always remains, could we use more? We've all seen Hemlock Hall disaster last year. There are fires. There are, as Steve Bloom has often said at these annual meetings, we're one disaster away from disaster. And so the steering committee is going to look in depth as to whether we should try to raise more cash. Now, if we decide, I don't want to get ahead of things. We haven't decided we need to. But if we decide we need to, there are a number of ways to do it. And, we could fiddle with the member discount that's now 10%. We could borrow money. We could ask, in an extreme, we could ask for a capital call, which by our operating agreement is limited to very small amounts per year. There are lots of things we could do, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we will keep in touch. All right. Another thing on the health of the LLC, and then I'll keep quiet. It's a report on unit sales this year. How many people can tell me how many units changed hands this year? Zero, right? No one wants to sell. Now that's ironic, 7 years ago, I think when this all started, everybody was a little unsure, we're going to make it, who knows? At this point, I think we've proven we are going to make it. And we have more people who are looking to purchase now than we have people who are looking to sell. We have 4 or 5 non-members who are on a list that Brad and I have. Some of them have been waiting 2 years to see if there's a sale. We also have members who want to buy more units. And we don't keep a list of that because of the way the process works, they will get their chance. If you know of someone, excuse me, who's, for whatever reason, isn't using their unit, maybe they've forgotten about it. I mean, there's no requirement that you check in every month. And they might want to sell. Tell them now's a good time. I know I'm talking to the group that probably will not sell, but you know, let the word, yeah, I'll talk to this group too. The point is valid. If someone wants to sell, the process is simple. They contact Brad or me or another member of the steering committee. We'll give them the list of non-members who are looking to buy. And then you go out as a seller and make your deal. Get as much as you can for your unit. You can get $1 million, take it. Then, of course, there's always, members have the option of right of first refusal or whatever the legal term is. After you get your deal with the non-member set up or with another member, there's a 30-day period for all of the members to consider whether they want to match that. If you match it, you get it. If there's a bidding war, there's a bidding war. If we ultimately have two members who agree to the same terms, believe it or not, this is a legal process. It's determined by a flip of the coin. That's in our operating. All right. So I just want the word out. There are people who want to buy if there are people who want to sell. One final note. Brad has already mentioned, but I want to reiterate. We could use young people, additional staff here, particularly in the May, June into July time period. And college schedules are always kind of moving, but that seems particularly appropriate for collegians in the United States. They get out in early May, so they could come up and help with opening. And they often have to go back early August. That's fine. They come up, work from mid-May until August. It's a great job. It's in, as you know, a great location. And the money is very good. Very good. So now on to the reports. I'm sure they will confirm what I tell you, that the LLC is strong and it's healthy. Thank you.
And now we'll get to the report I know you all actually want to hear about, and that's from Jamie, our general manager, to tell us his view on how the 2024 season was going. Keep it up.
Thank you, Brad. Again, thank you all for all your help this week. It's really very, very, very. You think of all of the time we spent working yesterday, having to be done by just a few of us. It would be weeks to catch up on everything that we accomplished yesterday. So again, I'm very, very thankful to you. I'd just like to mention, I'm going to say quickly, not in review so much as mentioning some folks who we recognized yesterday at dinner. We recognized the 3 chefs who were in premises. I would just like to go through a quick list of names of people that have helped us all year long. And many times they're behind the scenes and they just never get this right. So in any case, we had 14 students from Romania who joined us. They worked tirelessly, just did a great job, all responsible, all looking for extra things to do, many times not having to be asked in order to finish a job. In fact, would finish the job and do more than I was even expecting. So I'm very, very thankful for their help. As David mentioned, Brad did as well. They're able to come to us every year. We have a wonderful situation with companies in New York City and in Romania that provide us with students that we hire during the winter time for the most part. But they are not able usually to get here till at least before the middle of July. And of course, we need to be set up and running and providing all of the services before they ever get here. So we do need that extra help from American students and other folks who would be willing to help out. Just like to mention real quickly, they're not here. Maybe I can bring them out at some point. Hopefully they're not hiding, knowing I'm going to do this, but Jamie Strader, dining room. Wonderful, wonderful host, knowledgeable about everything in the Atlantics. Actually, I'm talking to her about giving a presentation in our activity schedule next year because she's so knowledgeable, hiking, all of those things. So in any case, Joe. All right, good, good. And Jamie, would you raise your hand? I just mentioned you. Unbelievable. Trains everyone in the dining room, all of the hosts, all of the waiters and waitresses, just unbelievable. And then Christina Robley, I know is, we know about Christine. From all of the housekeeping responsibilities to making incredible desserts, working Lord knows how many hours per day. She's absolutely invaluable. So thank you so much. Greg and Sam, the maintenance group, they work all winter long, all summer long, day in, day out, doing everything from building to painting to repairing, just incredible, hard workers, very, very talented, do electrical work, all sorts of things. We have helping us this weekend beyond the regular season, really. We have Kim, Michaela, Brandon, Christina, as I mentioned, Marina, and Claudio are still here from Armenia. And we couldn't do this without them. So I want to just give them recognition right now. Some recent hires which have been very, very helpful to us are Kevin and Tammy McDonald Kevin is in the front office working with Marianne, and Tammy is a couple of days at least in the dining room as a hostess. And both of them are incredible hires. You know, many times there's so few people around here that getting people with professional experience who have the ability to come and work with us is not easy. And they both have done that. And they are very, very, very helpful. And I think you've probably met Kevin up in the front office. Both great hires for us. So I wanted to mention them and thank them. Of course, Marianne and Timmy. There I go. We couldn't do this without them. Okay. Marianne, I'm telling you, I've said this before. She knows your birthday. She knows your phone number. So she is incredible. Her knowledge and experience, just incredible. And her memory and her hard work. I get up in the morning, I kind of stumble down the stairs, I make myself a cup of coffee. Marianne's on the computer working. Okay, breathe. No, unfortunately, it's been a lifelong thing. In any case, Timmy is just, you know, Timmy is amazing. I've talked to you before about her. She is the most talented person I think I've ever met in terms of technology. She has her PhD in engineering. And she's recently been hired as a full-time employee of New York State as an engineer. And she's doing her work exactly. And she's doing all of the work that she does for us in addition to her job with New York State. So tireless, talented, unbelievable help to us. So thank you so much, Tim. real quickly, I just wanted to reiterate our appreciation of all of the volunteer work that you all do. The list has been given already, but there's so many of you and people that are not here on the different committees and all, et cetera, that do so much work. We couldn't do this without the volunteer work. And of course, Brad and David, I think, do a wonderful job. So we wanted to thank you. So as far as the season is concerned, I've got a list that you may be able to read through. The biggest accomplishment was remodeling the kitchen. As I say, we took it down to the dirt. There was nothing in there. There were no machines. There were no floors. Most of the walls were stripped bare. Everything was out of that kitchen, and it was literally down to the dirt. And we built it back up last winter. Sam Colbert did much of the work many times by himself in a cold kitchen. And we built the beams and the foundation and the flooring back up. Everything was done by us. We did not hire any outside contractors. And I think that was a huge savings for us. I'm very, very proud of that. The only thing in that kitchen that was done by anyone else is the very top level of flooring. Everything else was done by us. And I'm very, very pleased to report that. We replaced the large stove. Jason was making all of the meals, 8-burner stove with only 3 burners working. It was time. So things like that just have to be taken care of. He has a new stove. We have a new large utility sink, a new dishwasher. We were able to provide a new serving console so that your dinners are made from those different trays. We repainted rooms 15, 16, and 17 and remodeled in Maine. We replaced rugs in Maine and in Stone Lodge. We made upgrades to spruce and painted the upstairs of Van Yperen. The outside of Van Yperen, I have pictures I wish I could show you. Sorry. Well, there's Van Yperen and there's also Main Lodge. In the cold in May, Jason Robley, our chef, was up on the roof, scraping, priming and painting the entire upper level of Stone Lodge, and I'm sorry, of Main Lodge. And I would come into work and go to my office and look up, and he'd be up there, doing incredible things. So in any case, very proud of that. Every year we purchase mattresses. We had 9 mattresses for beds, new beds this year. We replaced, this is big. We replaced 2 failing, undependable pumps out in the yard right outside the lodge here. And it kept me awake all of the time, whether they were going to fail and we were going to have to close down. It was that critical. The alarm would go off. I would call the company to come try and fix it. It was just touch and go for years, actually, while we were going. Those pumps take all of the waste from the lodges down here and from the kitchen and pump them up to the field up above, to the tanks up above, where they're chlorinated and things like that. But they were replaced, and it was a large expense, but it was it was required. It was absolutely essential. We are continuing to replace the cedar railings on the decks and porches. There's time for them to be done. In many cases, they're overdue. We are going to replace, we did replace the entire roof on Van Yperen. The entire roof was redone. We removed 12 trees that were dangerous. And we plan to plant more in the spring. And I was just going to mention, this has come up in my conversations with people. One of the donations you could make would be for a tree to be planted, which could be memorialized or, however you'd like to do that. But we will use that to, in addition to our own funds, but we want to replace trees that we've taken down. So if you're interested in doing, please let me know. Okay. Also, We built a wooden headboard on stone 22 wall. Okay, which was, it's the room where some of the time it's two twin beds and some of the time it's a queen bed. It changes back and forth depending on occupancy. And we put that in, and I think it's made a big improvement. We painted as I said, Jason painted the entire second story of Main Lodge. And we have many plans in place for things to be done. Essentially, I think this year you could say safely that we're going to repaint almost everything at the Hedges. That's our goal, is going to be repainting a great deal. And we couldn't get to some of these things last year because of so much time and energy in the kitchen. So it's time to catch up on these small. Okay. In any case, that's my quick rundown. Thank you for your patience, and thank you again for all of your support. It's very good.
Let's see, I forgot to mention for the folks on Zoom that Steve Bloom is monitoring the chat. So if you have questions for later, go ahead and send those in on the chat, and we'll be able to take care of those a little later. But Steve is monitoring those. I'm sorry, what?
9 if you do, because I don't count and Andy
It's
doesn't.
actually even fewer. It's about 6 people.
Yeah, it's
that are
about 6.
Part of our
Yeah.
group.
Yep. Let's see, next, gonna hear from Fred Bristol about the advisory council, and I think also about the survey. And,
Right.
And I hear that Steve Bloom is his backup on the survey.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I'll start with an advisory council, but I'm sure Steve will have 3 things to share about his involvement there. But David, it's not the Fred show. We have about 16 people right now. It's expanding as of this weekend, hopefully. But 12 of our advisory council people are here. So that goes to show you the advisory, like that's counting you, Sherry. And the others are on the call. At least I know a couple of them I've seen. So we've got a very involved group that do the things that, that are given to us by the steering committee, or ideas that bubble up. And now we're getting more ideas from the next gen group. So it's been a good year as usual. We only have, maybe a meeting every month or two, because most of our work is done in subcommittees. One of the biggest and most extensive ones is what we call the HAT group, Historical Archives and Activities Team, led by Chris Wella here. And they have 4 areas that they kind of focus on. One is the software we have, where we're documenting, the various archival things here, physically and digitally. And he asked me to ask you if you have any historical pictures of any kind that you'd like to share that might have significance. Please let him know. That's one area. The other area, second area, is the conditions of various items. And the biggest one we kind of tackled this year is to figure out about the piano. And we were able to determine, we had a specialist in, that goes back to Duryea in 1906. But unfortunately, it's not repairable, not without a significant expense. So it becomes kind of a relic with a sign and has historical value. But it would cost $15,000. If anybody has $15,000, replace it by all means, but we were able to kind of put that to bed, at least know what that is. The third item that they are working on is displaying our goods, and Loretta and Dave are building a fantastic display case for Maine, which you'll probably see hopefully next year, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's right, yeah. In Maine, to the left of the picture window. Yeah, so.
Will there be a light in it?
Yeah. So it's, yeah, I think they might have sent pictures out in one of the member letters, yeah. So you look forward to that next year. And they also do public outreach and information, and Roger Kessel, you're on the call, I think, met with a new historian over at Brick Camp Sagamore, because there's such history there, and to bring him up to speed. And he and Chris are also creating kind of a PowerPoint presentation that could be shown to guests here. And as you heard from previous reports, programs are really important, and we hear that, and it's been great that we are increasing that. So that's one committee. One thing that's come up, David and I created a cloud storage solution to put all our important documents somewhere safe. And we've been using that in our committees. But I think there's going to be more attention this year with that and the LLC stuff. The Next Gen group, you've heard about that. And I'd like to kind of acknowledge all the Next Gen groups that are here, because they really helped this weekend. That has been kicked off this year. Emily Sands is the kind of leader of that group, and they've done a survey, and they've had one meeting, and they're just kind of getting started. So again, I asked this last 2 years, I think, if you have any of your offspring or anyone connected to your families that would be interested in joining that group, let me know or Emily know. And that'll continue this year more aggressively. One of the feedback items that came out of that, and has also bubbled up through Chris and others on the advisory council and guests, is this idea of looking at the game room. And that got so much traction over the last few weeks, month, that'll be something that it looks like we're going to be tackling this off season. So already we got some good feedback from the Next Gen group. Our trail committee is very strong still. We did three things this year. One is the permanent signage that we replaced those numbers we had last year, and Charlotte Demers was very helpful in identifying those. So those were replaced. We did a lot of cleanup in the season, and then we did a few little tweaks on rerouting some things and improvements. So we did that. Lee Williams joined our group. You could be hearing from her, keeping us up to date on Water Watch. So she's now part of the advisory council. Andy Thomas has been here looking at our web security to be sure that's copacetic. And as I think David mentioned, we were tasked with that gift acceptance policy. So that we had a subgroup that did that for the steering committee. So a lot of things keep going. As you list them all, it sounds like a lot, I guess, but it's but if you have any ideas too, it's the things that that we can't put on the staff, we can't put on the steering committee. It's just kind of those other little projects that would enhance the experience for our guests. So you want to come up with the survey? We had I'll give you kind of the top line. You can provide the qualitative part. Because Steve has been following up when people want to discuss their ratings, but compared to last year, and this is amazing to me, we stayed at 9.6 on how you would rate your experience. 9.6 out of 10. That's just incredible. And that stayed steady. And would you recommend the Hedges 9.7? That did not change either. And you would expect things to go down a little bit, because all the really people that are really involved in the Hedges might fill it out, and then I did that last year. Long-term guests might not do it. As you rate the individual items, the number one thing, can anybody guess what the number one?
Dude.
No? Staff, yeah. Jamie and his team as he went through it. And again, that stayed high. We got a lot of feedback on, the rooms and the programs, as I mentioned, programs we're addressing, and I think as David and Brad mentioned, this work we're doing with the decorating committee with Joy and the outside work is really important to keep us fresh, because that some of those ratings reflect some of those feedbacks. And the response rate also was amazing. That stayed high at 34%, which is, unbelievable. When you think about how many surveys you've, then some of we allowed people to, share email addresses to discuss the things. And Steve, if you want to.
Sure.
Talk about some of that.
Thank you, Fred. Just first of all, a shout out to everything you've just said. Isn't it amazing that with this ownership structure, we have this whole extra level of skills and passions that we can apply? If you contrast this with other places that compete with the Hedges, they don't have the ability to think the way we do. And, you're describing all these amazing things we've done, the nature trail, just as a, yet another example. In terms of the surveys, I know that time is valuable. There's not that much more to add to all of this. Indeed, anybody who said you can contact me and they had suggestions, I've called, except for the most recent month. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but for June, July, August, I've done that. It's been close to a dozen people that I've spoken with. A couple of headlines. There's a distinct difference between people who come for shorter stays and longer stays. Shorter stays are slightly more likely to have questions about sort of how we do things, but you have to understand, every single person never wants to stop coming. Short stay, long stay, they have caught the disease once they come. So, some of the people that I spoke with are in fact unit holders, but most are not. So just talking about that, there were no major concerns. I'm just looking at my notes, a couple of one-off things on food, a couple of one-off things on decor. Maybe a little bit more often a few people saying perhaps there should be more activities. I think you're going to find that the co-managers and steering committee disagree with that. We want to keep a fairly simple vibe. We want to have activities, but we don't want to be known for our activities, kind of. That's not part of us. But I'm just relaying what we heard. And like I said, just to finish with what I said a minute ago, everybody I spoke with never wants to stop coming. So that's it.
And to that point about long-term, short-term,
Yeah.
David suggested we ask that question, how long do you stay? And it was as you would think. And actually the survey responses were split down the middle. Those that stayed under 1 to 3 days and stayed over 4 days. So you can see the longer term people like us are not responding as high at a higher rate. But on every measure, they were either better or equal to, the longer term guests were always rating us higher. So a lot of these ratings, and that's why you would expect it to go down, the people that come here for the first time. But as Steve said, they were also very complimentary.
And Fred, I'm sorry, there were more than 3 things that I said.
Oh, that's okay.
Great. Thanks, Fred. And Steve. And now we'll hear a little bit about communication.
That's not the picture I want. It's a cute picture. I'll be talking about this beautiful picture. So what is communications is what some say, because it's, and I studied it, I had 2 degrees in it. There's many definitions of communications, but I'm only going to talk about what the Hedges volunteer does in communications. And then the top line to me every year is the innovations that where I collaborate with the steering committee and the staff and the management. This year we needed more columns in our rate schedule, and we needed it fast. And that became a priority communications effort, and it needs to be developed further. And Annie's taking that on for the future. Creating the member news was an innovation this year. And that went out 8 times with regular news since the last meeting, 2 special editions in memory of Mike Salvatore, and then too many emails about this meeting. But we think we got the glitches solved, and you won't get as many about the meeting next time. Having member news means we can use pictures of the work and the fun of this weekend. So watch for the next one. You may see yourself with a chainsaw and we're going to take a picture of everyone at the end of the meeting and we'll have a picture of those who are at the online as well. I do appreciate and need, like everyone here, feedback and ideas. I got a lot at the campfire. I got some in the dining room and over happy hour. That's the continuous feedback improvement loop is really important. The ongoing activities I have in the bullet points. I won't go into detail on all of them. A lot of them, that the daily social media posts are identical feedback of Facebook, Instagram, and X. There were 16 hedge clippings editions, and each time it goes out by email, it's automatically shows up on those 3 social medias. The member news I mentioned. We have some local print and online advertising to promote job openings as well as how to shop and dine here. I respond to some, random messages that come in. People write to Instagram to ask how to make a reservation for a particular day. And I was like, so it's important that my eyes are on it, and it is every day when I make the post, I see if there's someone asking a question like that. And the LLC email account similarly. I love receiving the images and videos to the photos at thehedges.com. We set that up to help populate the calendar. But I ask each submitter if they're okay with it being used for other business communications, and most of them are, and increasingly are. This builds our visuals without paying to have a professional photographer on staff. But it's we have a way to archive them for the future through what the Hats Perfect software. So when we write the 200th anniversary book, the pictures from these 100 years will be easily accessible, assuming the web is still a thing. Fingers crossed, because we're investing in it. We have the activities calendar that working with Aaron Schneider is on the website, and other website edits are made as needed. The Crow's Nest webpage, we try to keep current because it is part of our sales, right? And it's only at this time of year where I look at the metrics. And that my metrics will go out in the minutes as after the meeting. 77 is the number of new Facebook followers in the last month of the season. That's a lot for the last month of the season. Some of the metrics are harder to, I can pull up the whole season or the whole calendar year. Others, they only give it to you by the month, and I only look at it once a year, so I can't tell you what the month before was offhand. That we reached 64,000 people with our 64,000 was the number of views of our posts just on Facebook in the last month. 64,000. The full season is 120,000. That number I could pull up. But one post is this huge number, 22,577. And that is Dave Lynn's picture of the year. Again, my grandkids. I'm trying to keep it up. It's been some places you'll see it more. I'm going to frame it for David because I want that to be an incentive for all of you to send it to me as soon as you've taken it, if you possibly can. I was sitting at home, probably wishing I was here, and this came into me by text, and I posted it immediately. It turns out Dave had a new camera, and he was enjoying the amount of light. His new phone camera got all those colors, and it's just perfectly composed, and that's why so many views happened. But that doesn't just happen by accident, because yes, he took the initiative. I happened to be sitting where I was excited and was able to move on it, but 35 people who saw it shared it with their friends, their family, their community. I want to acknowledge the Indian Lake Chamber, and they have been sharing most every one of our posts, which taught me a lesson that I needed to make sure to say what was available to lodging guests or lodging and dining guests, because we're not open to the public to stop in for a nature trail walk. But I now use my wording, and I just appreciate that they're doing that. So they're part of that 35. So it led to 695 liked it. Just on Facebook, 198 loved it, and 21 said, wow. Which is what I said.
Viral.
The same photo post, 479 views on Instagram, 113 liked. 8 went to our profile, having seen it. Which is the point. And 4 saved it in their own collections because they loved it so much. So they wanted to come back to it. I could go on with lots of other numbers, but I will stop here and say that I can ask me later what the 108,000. Thank you for your participation with it. Because, one thing I learned in my first course in communications as a 18-year-old was that word of mouth is the most valuable way of getting your message out. So we use all of these tools to start the word of mouth, but you guys are also the secret sauce. So thank you very much.
Post every day, even when we're traveling somewhere. She's sitting in the car, putting up a post.
Looking at the weather is late. I'm sure I'm not posting sun.
Let's see, next, I'm gonna hear about the Crow's Nest, Steve McGain.
Good morning, everyone. It's just a quick recap on the Crow's Nest. We think we did very well this year. We had gross sales year to date of about $52,000, which is yielding a profit of approximately $20,000. I've just noted here, I think that's particularly good for a small gift shop that's only open for 4 months. So we're pretty proud of that. And those profits go right back into the Hedges for operations and capital projects. So I think it's a good win. A special thanks to Lynn Croucher, who heads up the gift shop committee, and she dedicates a great deal of time to this. She is really a force, and when we're up here working, I mean, she's up at like 5 in the morning, and she's already in the shop working away. We have other volunteers I'd like to thank as well, Martha Schaefer, Ned Fletcher, and Joy Bristol. One of the things we do as volunteers, just to let you know, is we attend trade shows and select and buy merchandise. We come up to the Hedges in May, on average about 3 long weekends in May for shop setup. So we're up here working in the shop to get things ready. And then, of course, later in the year, this weekend to be exact, we're counting inventory and packing up the store for the winter. With all the critters and such about, we can't leave anything in the store. It's all got to be packed up and stored. Want to give a big thanks to Mary Ann, Timmy, and Kevin, who keep the store running all season long, and check out the guests with their items and package those items for safe travel home. We also try to buy as much as we can from regional artisans and local suppliers. Just wanted to kind of make a note of a few, like our rustic lamps come from a family in Chestertown. Some pot holders and table runners that we've stocked the last few years comes from a woman who lives in Stony Creek. Some pottery mugs that we stocked this year came from an artist. She's up in Malone. We had tote bags, wood Christmas ornaments, etched glassware, thermal mugs. Those all came from artisans and businesses in Glens Falls. And all our Hedges branded clothing and caps come from a small business up in Tupper Lake. So we're really happy to support local businesses, and the guests really respond to that as well. And we're really pleased when Mary Ann shares all the positive feedback that she hears from guests, many outside visitors and members alike about the store. So I'm real happy with how the store is running and the good feedback. So
It's always really very nice. When we opened in June, I've almost gotten to know this woman, but there's people will just come up and say, I've been waiting for this to open, you know, I want to get first dibs on what's here. And then we have people who come towards the end of the season, say, oh, you know, it's kind of Christmas or holiday shopping time. And so, you know, it's not just our guests that use it, we have a heavy presence from Racket Lake, Old Forge, Indian Lake, Long Lake. I have a couple of guests that always come from Speculator. Another big source is our outside guest breakfast people. They often will head up to the gift shop, some before the dinner hour, less, but a heavy presence from outside guests after breakfast. They will come up and shop. If they've had a successful purchase the year before, they'll definitely say, oh, I got this and I just had to come back. Sometimes people just say, I saw the sign, I was just curious. Sometimes people will pop their head and say, is it really okay for me to come in here? Yep, that's what we're for. We're a gift shop. You know, besides obviously taking care of the lodging. So we do get a variety of people besides our in-house guests. And obviously on a rainy day, it's the most popular.
So I have a recap of this year. So thanks all.
And now we're going to hear a little bit about Water Watch from Lee. We support Water Watch and like to hear what's going on because obviously water quality here in the lake is very important to us. Lee?
This is Blue Mountain Lake. I'm sure we all think of it as our lake. It's one of the most pristine lakes in the entire Adirondacks. It's oligotrophic, excuse my enunciation, which means it's very high in clarity and low in nutrients. The average depth that you can see in Blue Mountain Lake is 9 to 10 meters down versus an average of 4 meters for an average Adirondack lake. So it's quite extraordinary. It's a headwaters. No lake comes into this, only the 5 streams. It's spring fed and it has a very small watershed. So you don't get agricultural runoff. It's just the hills surrounding it. But the Eckford chain, of which we are part of, has a little threat, and that threat is variable leaf milfoil. It is found in the western half of Udawana Lake in about 3 locations, close to the shore and in the channel. Unfortunately, this year we had double the amount that we had last year, despite the fact that we harvested twice. We harvested at the beginning of June and we harvested in October, and it was fully grown, which means a motorboat had gone through and cut some of it off, so it floated, which isn't good. And it was fully flowering. The years before, we had only about 38 gallons. When we first started, we harvested 370 gallons in 2020. Then it went down to 125. The past 2 years were about 36, 38, and now we're at 72. So we must keep fighting this. Which brings me to the 2024 Blue Mountain Lake Association Fund Drive, which ends this December. We don't want to bug people constantly. We do it every 3 years. The goal is $150,000. And so far we've made 116,000. And this is used to survey the Eckford chain, to look in everywhere to see if there's any milfoil, and to pay for divers to harvest it. It's a very particular process. They go in with scuba gear. They have to pull the plant out, including the root. They're underwater. They put it in a bag. They come up, they throw it in the boat, and they do it again. They have to make sure not to break it. And they have to make sure to recognize it and not confuse it with native plants. The divers are trained and hired and supervised by Aqualogic. So the area hazards in our particular neck of the woods, besides this lovely little variable leaf milfoil, looks like Rapunzel's hair. There's heavy concentrations of it in the Marion River, which is probably how it got into the western half of Udawana. It is so heavy in Lake Durant. I mean, the end of the season, if you try to canoe in there, you know that. It is also in Long Lake, Racket Lake, and Forked Lake. Racket Lake also has Eurasian milfoil. The other nasty little critter, this thing is a spiny water flea. This is an Indian lake. It's this tiny little thing. It gets stuck in fishing gear. It's very gelatinous. And once it's in a lake, you cannot get rid of it. It eats the native zooplankton, and then the local fish have less to eat. So it reduces the native fish population, and it doesn't have a predator. It's too big to fit in their mouth. So really the only thing we can do about that is prevent it. And it's an Indian lake.
Yeah.
So we don't want it to come here. Lake associations spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to combat invasives. In Lake George, it's $500,000 a year. And then other strategies have been employed, mats, carp in Adirondack Lake. Lake George had a big brouhaha this last season because they put Procella, which is a growth hormone. It's a herbicide. There were lawsuits that people in the Bay didn't want it, but it's a growth hormone that makes the plant grow so fast it dies. But people thought, I don't want this unknown chemical in my bay or in my drinking water, or what's going to happen in the future with it. But it works. It's been used in Lake Minerva. Lake George it cannot simply combat this just with divers, which is the standard modality. In Blue Mountain Lake, we basically see the trend line. The costs go up. So our costs are the survey of the expert chain and then the harvesting. The average cost about this year, I have to get the final numbers, was about $42,000. Because we had two harvests, the beginning of June and October, because we still found milfoil. What the Blue Mountain Lake Association wants to do is increase the divers, have them every month for 4 days, and that would be an extra 20,000. We're talking about this, but really we want to just hit it really hard and see if we can stop it now while it's early. So all of us as a community must continue to work to prevent this. So what you can do, each one of us, clean, drain, and dry your boat before you get here. That is the law. You are supposed to do that before you go into any new water body. The best place to do it is at a boat wash station, and figure out which station you're going to before you come here, because Blue Mountain Lake at the end of the summer lost staff and didn't have anyone there. So the best thing to do is go online, click on it, find where the station is. And one of the biggest ones is on the 87. It's open 7 days a week, and you can just do this before you come here. With a motorboat, you can also do it with canoes. It is actually the law. It's New York state law. You must have a boat certification that your boat was clean, either by a boat station, a boat steward, or self-certified. So they can actually ask you at the marina, where's your certificate, before it gets put in. And that takes the pressure off the marina, because they are the gatekeepers. And that's a difficult thing. Somebody comes up here with a boat and the station's closed, and what are they supposed to tell them? It's a lot of pressure on Quinn and his crew. And to be frank, Bob Curry, a local business owner, he's closed his boat launch to protect our lake from aquatic species.
Where is it on 87?
It's at the
83
Adirondack
before
Welcome
18.
Center near Glens Falls. It says Adirondack Welcome Center. It's near exit 17.
Between 17 and 18. Yeah.
In particular for Udawana Lake, if you're a motorboat, don't go up that final channel. Whatever boat you are, It's on the edges. If you're a canoe, stay in the middle. What we are planning to do next year is actually try to have permanent orange buoys. So the area is marked so nobody goes there. That is our plan for next year, to get the permanent buoys and to possibly increase the divers, but you know, we have to talk about the money and the mechanics of it. What else you can do about the spiny water flea? Use proper bait procedures. It's very simple. Don't bring your bait from home or anywhere else. Buy it locally. It's certified. What you can do with your fishing pole, put 140 degrees hot water on it for 2 minutes, and that will kill anything. The spiny water flea can get in the bottoms of canoes. It can get in bilge water, live wells. It collates on fishing lines. So make sure you get your boat cleaned, even look at your canoe. Let's say you go in Durant, it's just simple common sense. Check your shoes, check your oars. Don't bring water from somewhere else into here. So this is what all of us can do to prevent invasives. What else you can do as an individual? You can simply stay informed. Go to the Blue Mountain Lake Association and you click on Water Watch and you can read all our lovely updates. You can even write a check and you can write water fund on it. You can give online or you can simply write a check. Boat wash stations are free, so you can do that too. Let's all help keep blue blue.
Hedges does contribute to the Blue Mountain Lake Association and to the Lake Steward Program. And Mary and I are members of the Blue Mountain Lake Association, recommend everybody consider that. I'm going to add something to the agenda here. Betsy Hirschman asked for a few minutes, and I understand she's now a librarian for life.
I also monitor games and puzzles, and it was an interesting phenomena, but when the pandemic was over, all of a sudden we got a big infusion of games and puzzles. So that was very interesting. The only thing I want to say is with games, please take them to the office first rather than drop them in the game room. Because sometimes I almost had heart failure because the moms are reading a magazine and the little toddlers running around putting everything in their mouth, including teeny tiny pieces that they could strangle on.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm really sorry. Do you mind if I just? Thank you.
And so I'd like to be able to look them over first and say, they should be adult only and we'll put it in Maine. Or it's just too dangerous for little kids, we'll give it to the library and they'll sell it there. There's youth book sale every year. But it was really cool to see all these new puzzles come in. And so we could clean out some puzzles like the Red Barn from 40 years ago. And there are places that'll be happy to get those too. So anyway, what to bring to the Hedges? The good books, not just cleaning out your library. So if you're cleaning out 100 books, give us 10. I mean, we have very small room, the little library, and then over in Stone, and then on the other side of, where Pioneer is, and then we have a storage area. But so when you're going through, if it's damaged in any way, if the binding's broken inside, paperback's okay, but not, one that is starting to fall apart, even though you loved it, it's not good here. Now, another thing is I don't know what's being left here because it was a bad book and they just tossed it in. And what is a book that somebody just really loves and wants to give us. So if you could write a little comment, star it, say this is a keeper or love to the Hedges or anything. I don't care how old it is, what it is, I'll put it on the shelf, but at least I know it's a good book. Not the summer read that somebody just hated. So that would be helpful. What not to bring? Don't bring 1,000-page tomes, because the idea is they want to sit for a week and read it and be done. I mean, for me, it was the only time of the year I could sit and read a novel. And if it had been 1,000 pages, I don't know, I never would have gone on a hike for a week. My husband would have been upset about it. Nothing political, nothing that's so down that you're gonna walk around crying all the time. Maybe no religion. You know, things, we want to try to keep everything sort of easy to take at the Hedges, makes everybody happy. So if you have 100 books to give away, give us 10, the 10 best. And that's what I have to say.
Great, thank you. I want to take a few minutes to give you a little review on financials through September 30th. You received them via email. I have extra copies here if anybody in the room needs some. First thing I'm going to say is, remember, September 30th is not the end of the season, and it's not the end of the year. It's a snapshot in the middle of the season, but you know, I want to give you a few highlights. You heard on the balance sheet previously that we're doing well cash wise. We're at 685,000. We're probably going to end the season more like $750,000 in cash. Don't think we're going to have a big distribution based on that. Don't be planning on that. Remember, as of today, there's no more revenue for the rest of the year, and we clearly have staff working like that. So it will decline a bit between now and December 31st. So don't get ready to spend that distribution. But we're in a great position cash wise. The operating statement, the profit and loss, you can see revenue is up for the year, expenses are down. Obviously, that works. You get revenue higher and expenses lower, things are good. So our operating margin is pretty good at this point of the year. I'll give you a couple of highlights on it. You'll see that food sales are down a bit, even though the dining room's been busy. We didn't have a couple of large activities early in the season this year that we had last year. When you're trying to compare year to year, we had a couple of large activities where we served a big meal for some outside guests, and did not have that this year. So you see that's down a little bit. On the expense side, you'll notice that payroll is down. That isn't because we laid anybody off. We actually had more people. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but we had more people working. Therefore, we paid way less overtime. And that's why you're seeing wages, the total wages down. And I think we were successful this year to have more people. I think service was excellent. And you can see from a cost standpoint that actually helped. We weren't paying overtime. Unlike my own budget, I noticed that both insurance and taxes did not go up significantly. But things didn't go up quite as much here in the Adirondacks as they did in Tompkins County, where I live. So we're not seeing huge increases in insurance costs or in taxes and property taxes. They're going up, but they're going up modestly, which is nice. We added health insurance for full-time employees this year who wanted it. So that's a new expense. You'll see that one is a comparison. Last year it was $0. But we did add that this year. I think it's important for retaining staff to have that. So we've added that in. Beyond that, take a question, Steve.
Credit card charges are a big saving.
Oh, credit card charges. Thank you. Yes, we asked this year, part of the change in our rate sheet was we were going to charge you 3% more roughly if you used a credit card. Because our costs, and you can see last year through September 30th, we were already up to 43,000 in costs. It was going to pass 50,000 this year in cost. And so that's why we asked, please bring your checkbook instead, and we'll give you 3% less in your charge if you do that. And you can see, since we only paid 12,000 so far in bank charges, that was a significant change. for us.
And Brad, some of that 12,000 is reflected in increased revenue because guests paid
We
a
paid it.
higher, larger
Correct.
charge.
That's correct.
Okay, so
Yeah, we did not put two charges on if you were just buying at the store at the Crow's Nest, or if you were just here as a guest at dinner. We didn't charge you differently whether you used cash or credit, but for the lodging, we put that charge on, and you can see what it did for us. You used your checkbook
Amazing.
and you got a good savings, and we saved significantly in our costs. Any questions? Anytime you got a question, do email me, call me, happy to talk about it. I sometimes know what the answer is, and can help you out if you want to understand something. Happy to explain it to anyone.
Hey, Brad,
Yeah.
professional fees, what does that entail?
The accountants and lawyers. So, yeah, professional fees are down this year, aren't they? As I recall, yeah. And this year it's just
pretty
accountants.
much the tax preparation.
Yeah, the year before, we had some legal fees having to do with investigation of Old Hedges Road. We had a number of folks who wanted to know, can we walk on Old Hedges Road? And the answer is, well, sure, if you're at your own risk. It is not a public road. It is not a public way. There is no easement over it. Trust me, we investigated every option. I tried to argue the town never abandoned the road, and discovered the state actually has a rule about that. If they actually abandoned it and never had a resolution about it to abandon it, 10 years later, it's abandoned. So I tried, but there is no right of way there. So that's why we've now put up a sign telling you where the end of the property is. If you walk past it, I don't know about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this. But that was the additional expense last year. I remember both the title company search and legal.
Well, thank you for trying.
Yeah, we tried. Give it our best.
Also, just wanted to just make mention that a shout out to Timmy. I don't know if everyone realizes she does all the bookkeeping, bill pay, payroll, and she's meticulous and timely with all that information. So if she wasn't an engineer, I'd recruit her into accounting. But she's a huge help. And
Yeah,
I
thank
want
you,
everybody
Timmy.
to know that.
And I will tell you, I'm kind of a round to the nearest $10 guy. Timmy and Steve are find the last penny. So yeah, they find it all. As I say, I would round to the nearest $10. That's why they don't let me put it together. So that's what I would do. But we're in good shape there. Elections. You want to lead that? Or no, who was it? Oh, it was Alex. I'm sorry, it wasn't Chris, it was Alex. Sure, lead that or okay. I can if you'd like. Or Annie, either one. Or if you want, okay, all right. So steering committee members for a 2-year term. Our nominees are.
Our steering committee members, so I am gonna speak very briefly. The nominating committee had a wonderful job this year in that all 4 of the current steering committee members who were up wanted to jump back in. And it wasn't just a rubber stamp process. These are great people. They have history, they have knowledge, and they've done a great job. So we nominated them again. We did collect more names. Annie may want to join in, but part of it is also creating a system because we're not always going to be so lucky. So creating a pool of names of people who are interested, who have skills, so that when we are out beating the bushes for someone who's willing to put the time in, we at least have a list of people we can call first thing. So in any case, steering committee nominees would be Joy, Brad, Steve,
David.
and David, who is hiding behind the post over there, and I can't see.
Are there other nominations? Going once. Going close. Nominations are closed. I'd ask for a vote for those four for the steering committee. And any opposed or abstaining? All right, that would appear unanimous. Nominations for managing members.
Okay, I'll take over again, because you shouldn't nominate yourself. Again, we are extremely lucky. This is a lot of work. The managing members, it's a lot of work. And these guys have done a great job. Brad and David are game to continue doing it. And we certainly are happy to nominate them to do so.
Are there other nominations for managing member? Seeing none.
Wait, maybe give it another minute.
Want me to twist some arms or? No, that's good. Those in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? And it's unanimous. And then my favorite, the Liquor Authority authorized members. This saves all of you from having to present your credentials and financial statements to the Liquor Authority. So if you want to substitute somebody else, that'd be great, but they're going to have to go through a process with the Liquor Authority. Just so you understand why we just keep the same two of us there every year. Now, myself and Dave Lynn, we've been the authorized ones since the start. Anyone else want to dive in? Those in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous again. The treasurer and secretary are appointed by the steering committee. We'll, at our next steering committee meeting, we'll appoint those as well. So those will go forward. So now questions, let me see, from the Zoom, we actually have a comment and a question. The comment, I want you all to hear, it was the first year in 25 that there was no septic smell near cabin 8. So thank you to Jamie and his crew. I think some of you know, we've worked on this for a couple of years. And knock on wood, I think we've got a process now and the procedures and are able to keep up with it. But that was a great comment. Had a question from Butch about rainwater coming down the hill from Route 28 toward us, what we're able to do there. Based on the storm last year that caused such problems across the lake at Hemlock Hall. So we're on a state route as opposed to a town route. And the state road has better drainage than a town road. So Route 28 picks up some water there. Jamie and his team 2 years ago, Jamie, or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, along Hedges Road, as you come in here, they dug out the drainage on the other side of the road down to the lake so that was cleaned out. At this point, that's what we can do. We'll keep up the cleaning on our side, but it's a good question. I appreciate it from Butch about, the rain, having had that unusual thunderstorm. We were lucky. The only thing we saw here was a lake rise. The lake went up, but we didn't have water sheeting across the property the way they did at Hemlock Hall. And I think it's those two things. It's the difference between a state highway and a town highway, and the fact that Jamie had been ahead of things and had cleaned out things on the other side of Hedges Road. So there's where I think what we can do and what we've been able to do. Other questions? Yes, Betsy.
Why can't we take some of the cash and make an emergency fund and put so much every year in it and let it just build up? Because I mean, in Florida, they have it and they weren't so strict, now they're very strict. Where so much,
I'm sorry, in Florida, what? I'm trying to understand the corollary, what?
he said, you know, one disaster away from disaster. Could we start developing an emergency fund where every year some of the cash goes into a fund, but not to be touched? And let it grow, you know, hopefully in a high interest account or.
I'll let you take that.
Brad, repeat the question.
Oh, I'm sorry for the folks on Zoom. The question is, why don't we create an emergency fund separate from the rest of the cash? David.
And it's a good question, Betsy, and it is one of the things that the steering committee will be considering over the next several months. It's a good idea. We do informally protect the money. We're very careful over each winter not to spend more than we think we should. We don't want to be running down our cash. But the idea of having a fund that people could regularly contribute to, it would be separate, it would be denominated as a separate fund for an emergency or for, you know, long-term development or whatever, is definitely on the table.
But some money should go into.
Yeah, yeah, oh,
we-
absolutely, absolutely.
And recognize, I mean, you'll see that on the balance sheet, the money isn't all in the same account. We do have, we have cash in investments that is set aside already.
But, well, maybe some of that should be earmarked as a, you know, you just can't touch it to build a pavilion or rebuild a cabin or
Yeah,
decorate this.
I understand it. It's a matter of characterization, and I agree with you. It's something we should be thinking.
They said, oh, 70% vote, you don't have to do it.
Do what? I don't know what you, see, I don't understand the corollary.
Well, 70% voted to,
To do what?
State law, you had to have an emergency fund, you couldn't use it for anything except certain designated emergencies. But then in the condos, they say, well, since everybody was having a fit about it, then years ago, they said, oh, well, 70% of you say you don't want to have a
Oh,
fund.
so this is a condo association law in Florida.
Why? As
Yeah,
a
we're-
group of-
Well, let me
It's sacred, you can't.
Okay, now I understand.
yeah, let me respond this way. We don't have a state law requiring us to do anything. Yeah.
And we're not a condo.
And we're not condos. Having said that, the principle you're espousing, which is that we should be carefully husbanding and hopefully ever growing quantity of money for emergency or whatever uses, but truly extraordinary uses, is something that we are, as I said, steering committee's looking at it. We are definitely considering.
You know, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I love that we're only one disaster away from disaster.
I
That's
give
the
Steve
best
credit for
thing.
that. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? I actually have other business, so I've got to collect.
Yeah, I'm just curious, so
Yeah.
the gift certificates outstanding at
Yes.
like
Mhm.
6,000 something, these are gift certificates for gift store,
For the
for
store.
lodging,
Or for, it could be for lodging, it could be for dining.
and you just keep them, like, is there?
Well, I have to stay on the books.
Yeah,
because they can't be
so-
reviewed.
Since we've accepted the cash, but haven't delivered the service. So we have the cash, but it's a liability in that we have
Going
to still,
forward.
right, we still have to deliver whatever services they
Yeah.
want.
Did they expire?
No,
No.
And
we've not done
Yeah,
that.
you can do.
look in here.
Loan, Development Authority of the North Country, that was the loan we used to purchase the property.
And it pays at 1% interest.
1%, yeah.
So you're gonna see that on our books for as long as we can.
It's a 20-year loan and it'll be on the books for 20 years. So 1% is not a big thing.
Do we have expertise to figure out, try to predict what is the most likely disaster?
Well, that's interesting. That's one of the conversations we've started now at the steering committee. Obviously, we have insurance, and so certain risks are covered from that. But you still have the risk of, say, this building burning. You've lost your kitchen. What do we do there? Now you have business interruption insurance, that's part of it. What will it pay for, what will it not pay for, and what it won't do is cook dinner. So, you know, what would we do in that sense? Would we close down? Would we invite people to come and, you know, put a kitchen on a tractor trailer to, you know, try and cook that way?
Keep the lean-to fire going.
I mean, that's, I mean, you're insured, but can you stay open? Is really the kind of risk that we have. I mean, clearly if a cabin burns, I mean, we've lost that revenue for a season while a cabin gets rebuilt, but if we lose this building in any way, it's complicated at that point.
I was thinking more along, I don't think Hemlock Hall anticipated that
Well,
natural disaster.
Well, that's interesting. Now, you and I would think, well, that's called flood insurance and we can get insurance for that. You can get flood insurance for rising. Can't get flood insurance for sheeting water. that comes across. But there's no coverage, nobody offers. So it's interesting. We can insure ourselves if we chose to from this lake rising. But we can't insure ourselves. That's why I think Butch had the question. We can't insure ourselves from water sheeting across the property. So there's another risk that it's uninsured. We can't. We tried. There's no insurer who covers that. That's not their definition of flood.
In terms of disasters, I mean, you can look at the history of the Adirondacks the last 10 years. It's mostly fires and floods. You know.
Well, be
Are we
clear.
worried about a terrorist?
Yeah. No, but
It's
it's clear,
fires
the
and
other
floods.
risk, the biggest risk we probably have.
In the dining room.
I think that's probably the largest risk we have now. We're insured. Buying insurance after that burning is what would be the disaster, because it would be very hard to buy liability insurance. I call it the one-time stupid exception. You're insured once. Trying to insure again against that same risk is going to be incredibly costly if you can do it.
Which is why you see around the property, please wear your life vest in the vessels. You know, watch your little children at the beach. I mean, all those reminders are for a good reason.
Are we insured only in the designated swimming areas? Beyond that, we're not insured?
No, we're insured, no, but we're insured in swimming areas and around. It's just that we don't. My fear is if one were to occur, our ability to then buy insurance after that. In other words, the insurance company will pay off and then cancel us.
But if somebody goes out to Rock Island and drowns out there, are we insured for that? We shouldn't be.
Well, if they're on our, if they got out
If
there
they're
on our
a
boat,
guest.
they got out, they're a guest here and they got out there on our boat. Which is why we really want everybody to have the life jacket.
Yeah.
Brad?
Yes.
This summer with the, the whole East Coast, I guess, having, more storms and the tornadoes. I did for the first time this year have people come up that Wednesday in July when we had the tornado warnings.
Yes.
And people really, a very experienced hiker, camper, winter, summer, spring, fall guy came up and he said, Marion, I'm kind of concerned. I'm following this on the radar. What is the plan? Where would we all go in the event of a tornado? And, if you're kind of that section up, I thought we could go to the garage. It's a new, strong building, cement floor, but somebody who's up in Stone 19, are they gonna walk all of it? So sounds like something we should talk about.
Okay. Yep.
Cause guess that somebody else next day said, where would we go? Where should we go?
Okay.
So.
All right.
And
We
it
will.
was just a tornado warning
Right.
that was so active, that was so close.
Right.
Several years back, there was a microburst here and.
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't. So,
Right.
I remember that.
yeah.
All right. We'll add that to the agenda. Other questions?
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
You talked about fire. Is there a sprinkler system in the kitchen?
Oh, is there a sprinkler system in the kitchen? There's fire suppression over the stove. Just over the stove. But it, like any restaurant, we're required to have a suppression system over the stove. And we have that.
Thanks.
Going once, going twice. Other business. we were visited by our good friend Pat Benton on Friday. I had invited her to come join us. She and some others here in town are with the Adirondack Center for the Arts. And some of you may know or may not know, the Center for the Arts is by impoverished and looking to convert the old restaurant into a performance space, galleries, and so forth, and use the lodging for artists and residents. So quite an expansion of what they're doing. They've received substantial state support. She's asked us whether Hedges would support it, that, and whether I was willing to ask you all for support. So I said yes. So here's what I've got here for you is information from her about the project and what they're doing. What the steering committee is committed to do is we're willing to contribute $15,000 to the project if you contribute $15,000. Meaning we'll match gifts up to 15,000. So if you give 100 a year for 3 years, we'll match you $300. If you give $500, we'll match you 500 up to 15,000. We're going to pay ours in over 3 years. We're not going to do it all at once. Same for you. Choose whether you want to do it one-time gift. If you don't want to do it, that's fine too. There's pledge information in here. Please mark it Hedges member if you put your name on it so that we'll be able to track and match your gift. So I've got information for everybody on that if you want to.
Brad, when will that start? When will the money start flowing to?
Well, they had hoped to close on the property Friday. They did not. They're, real estate. I won't tell her lawyer Joe. But they were they're hoping by the end of the month going. Any time. So I appreciate your taking a look at this and considering it.
What Brad is handing out will be sent out in the member news. So everyone online and not with us will get it.
Yeah. All right. Are there other questions or anything else to come before us?
Brad?
Yes.
Quick question, you know if that means that strong rope is the?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, for the folks, the question is, will Strong Rope still be there? They're going to request the Strong Rope continue, but understand the owner of Strong Rope is the nephew of the folks who are selling. If Strong Rope says no, they're going to seek to make it a tasting room for some other brew pub, probably in the Adirondacks, to use it. So they're going to try and keep that piece of it. And I'm not sure they really have thought through yet what they're going to do with the 3 cabins on the water, whether they're going to continue to rent those or keep those for artists, because they do have rooms above the garage and above the pub that they, as well as the cabins. So they may continue to rent those, but yes, I'd ask that same question. Thank you for asking.
We need to get a new liquor license there too.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That was to take time.
Yeah, although if it depends, if it's a tasting room for an existing brew pub in the state of New York, they have a right to a tasting room as part of their existing license. All right.
So then we take a picture.
Oh, yeah. Now we're going to take a photo. So those of you who are in the Heckman room, if you'd come stand in the back here.
And we'll get us a screenshot of the Zoom room. But the meeting, Brad, the meeting's adjourned?
Yes, meeting's adjourned.
You sit. You guys sit. Those, yeah, sitting will be best.
Mark it.
Just getting to get up on the And they would give us the amount that the lab.
Yes. You turned off.
And I got it.
I trust it. Or you already used it.
Really gonna do this?
A more stable. I'm good. You sure? Okay.
I
don't know, we've got insurance. I don't know if we have enough.
Well, Timmy, that, but so are we leaving?
Liability. Staff members.
So are we good? Am I done? All right.